Hello all, I'm the Mad Pastor, and this is another episode of The Mad Pastor Reacts. This is where I pit my expertise, education, experience, and understanding against the internet's most popular preachers. Last week I did Joel Osteen. I only got about halfway through that video before I had to quit because of my mental health. We'll do Joel Osteen part 2 another time. So this week I'm gonna skip ahead. For now, we're going to do Madison Prewett. Now, Madison Prewett got the opportunity to preach at Lakewood Church, Joel Osteen's church. As best I can tell, her only credentials are that she was a celebrity and a Christian, and that's it. She has absolutely no expertise, no experience, no education, and why she was given one of the largest platforms in Christendom, I don't understand, but we're going to give her a fair shake. You know, if she has good things to say, then, fair play to her. I don't think that's how it's going to go. Let's give her a fair try. Here we go.
Y'all make some noise for Madison Prewett!
Thank you. Man, I gotta say, I love your kicks. It feels so good to be back.
Okay. Your coat's falling off your shoulder.
The theme is the power of an invitation. And I'm not talking about the e-invite, the ones that go to your Gmail or Yahoo account, but an actual physical invitation. And I have them laying around my house everywhere.
That's a weird brag. I have invitations laying around my house everywhere.
But how awkward is it when you're that person that doesn't get invited? Being uninvited can feel like being unwanted. I remember when I was in high school, there was this big party called the Kentucky Derby Party. All the girls would want to be invited to it. You know, this group of women put it on, and you never really knew why certain people got invited and certain people didn't. I just would constantly go out and check the mail. I didn't see the invitation, but I was I'm not worried. I've been dressing my part. I've been pretty successful on the basketball court. You know what I'm saying?
Can we talk about the cadence? You know, there's a certain cadence that has to happen when you're preaching. There's a certain cadence that has to happen when you're trying to make a spiritual point. And it's easy to do an impression of it, which means, to me, at least I think, it's fake.
I was the only one that didn't get invited. You're battling with loneliness and shame and rejection. And who am I? No one wants me. I have good news for you.
What you should do is get pretty and go on The Bachelor.
Jesus is the greatest inviter of all time. And he wants you to know that you will always belong with him.
Unless you wear your jacket on both shoulders. Jesus will not tolerate both shoulder jacket wearing.
The first person that Jesus invited was the sinner.
The first person that Jesus invited?
There's this story in the Bible, Luke 23. Jesus is being crucified. He has two criminals next to him.
So this is the end of the story. This is not the first person that Jesus invites.
One is mocking him. Oh, if you were really the Son of God, save yourself. The other criminal steps in and he says, this man has done nothing wrong. We are criminals. We deserve the cross. And he looks at Jesus and he says, when you enter the kingdom, remember me. And Jesus says, I assure you, you will be with me in paradise today.
What is it with this church that hates reading the Bible? Have you noticed that? When I preach, I tend to lead with the text that I'm preaching from. And I've noticed several times that this church just absolutely doesn't read the Bible. They like to paraphrase it so that they can make it say what they want it to say.
And in that moment, that criminal who had lived a whole life of sin recognized, I'm a sinner and I'm in need of a savior.
That is not the point of that. There's no expertise, there's no education, there's no actual study of the text. It's just, this is what it sounds like to me, so you should listen to me. I'm pretty.
You've been invited to church. You've seen the people around you live.
Careful, that jacket almost is on your shoulder. Don't let it get on your shoulder.
And you live this Christian life.
You will not meet Jesus in heaven.
That story encourages me because this criminal lived a life of sin.
She doesn't know that. That's nowhere in the text. He lived a life of sin. For all we know, he stole a piece of bread to feed his family, Les Mis. That is nowhere in the text. She's making a wild assumption, and it is not based on the Bible.
That's the first person that Jesus invites.
Again, it is not the first person that Jesus invites.
The second person that Jesus invites is the unseen. In Luke 19, we read a story about a man named Zacchaeus. He was a tax collector, but he was short. Jesus was gonna be coming through the town, and he was so excited. But I've gotta see him for myself. Man, I'm never gonna see Jesus with all these crowds. I'm so short.
That is not the point of that story. The point of the story is that he's a tax collector. You don't understand what a tax collector is. What a Hebrew tax collector in a Roman society, like there's no education, there's no experience, there's no understanding of what's going on. All she can see is he's short. That's not the point of the story.
So he does what he knows to do, and he climbs up in a tree, and Jesus starts coming. He stops where Zacchaeus is, and he looks up in the tree, and he says, "Come down. I must stay at your house today." Zacchaeus was probably so giddy, so glad. Finally, someone sees me.
He's a tax collector. People had to see, like he had the might of Rome behind him. He was making a fortune off of his neighbors. That's the point. He was a despised person, not because he was short, you superficial idiot. It's because he was a tax collector. It's because he was siding with the enemy.
Just like that Kentucky Derby party, there were multiple times in high school. My friends would be in these group text messages making all these plans. I would be the only one not in the text. I would feel so left out.
I do not believe that that's a thing that she often did. A more helpful lesson might be everyone gets left out at some point. The way she's phrasing it makes it seem like there's an us and a them rather than just an us. There's just an us. Everyone gets left out of the group text sometimes. That's a normal experience. It's not that we should take that personally and then run off to a mega church that's going to tell us we're never, ever wrong. No, that's a part of the human experience. And it happens to all of us, even the beautiful people. And we should learn that, oh yeah, let's not take that personally.
It was big in Alabama for everyone to do sororities. I remember rushing and all the sororities dropped me. And again, I felt so unseen. I felt so rejected.
You actually should ask yourself why. Why did all the sororities drop you?
Whatever your unseen and unwanted moments may feel like, I just want to encourage you tonight. Jesus meets you where you are at, but he loves you too much to leave you that way.
Okay, all right, she's onto something. I'd like a little more meat, but that's good. I agree with that. That's solid theology.
The third person is the suffering. In John chapter 5, we read about the story of a man who had been suffering for 38 years, sitting on a mat.
So now she's in the Gospel of John. Like she's hopping all over the place to try and make a point. This is what's called eisegesis as opposed to exegesis. She's decided what she wants to say, and now she's hopping all over the Bible to find examples of how that proves her point, rather than asking herself, what does this text actually say to me, and what should I say about it to literally millions of people?
And he said, "Sir, every time I try and get close, someone gets in front of me and I don't make it. And so I just can't get healed." And I imagine in that moment, Jesus is like, no.
I'm not really interested in your imagination about the text. I'm more interested in what the writer wrote.
Do you think I'll ever love again? I remember when I came off The Bachelor, and so much trauma and so much heartbreak and so many hateful comments. I was so overwhelmed. Again, I tapped back into that place of anxiousness. I didn't want to get on social media. I didn't want to see anybody.
Yeah, when you go on a national TV show that pretends to be about love, if you're going on The Bachelor because you really want true love, I think you're horribly misguided.
I lost 20 pounds. Again, my face started breaking out.
It feels a bit like you might be preoccupied with your image. Also, your jacket, like if you could just pull your jacket up on your shoulder.
I'd read the story 100 times.
No, she hasn't.
I could relate to this man on the mat, and it was like the Lord asked me and looked me in the eyes and said, "Do you want to be healed?" Of course I do, God.
She pulled the jacket up. I'm so proud of you. I think we're going to have to call it quits there. Unless you are actually offering some real advice and some real help, it's just cheap grace. And it's really hard to accept from somebody who's had a lot of success and isn't willing to be vulnerable and talk about real life. That's my best assessment of this whole sermon. So I've been the Mad Pastor. This has been Madison Prewett, and this is the Mad Pastor Reacts. We'll continue to look at this sermon in the second half and, as best I can manage while balancing my own mental health. He's really taken it out of me. They're hard to listen to. It's just, there's nothing to it. So anyway, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen.